All right, everybody. It looks like we are once again live. And as I said, tonight we're going to be having a guest on the show, and he is backstage right now. I'll be letting him in here in a second. Same rules as ever. If you got any questions for either of us, put them over in the live chat. If you want to donate to Pets and Vets, do a super chat. And always, if you want to support TYMP Triple P, go become a subscribe star, patron if you want to support Pets and Vets, and buy merch if you want to support TYMP Triple P. I'm going to go ahead and bring him in now. Hold on one second here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I just want you to take a couple minutes right now. First off the bat, I want you to tell people who you are, what your YouTube channel is, and why you do what you do, so people will be familiar.
Okay. Well, I am Rick Gore, and I was a cop for 30 years. I kind of started YouTube doing horse videos. I got a Think Like a Horse channel. Then I started doing Think Like a Cop videos because people were asking my opinion as a cop. And then I started evaluating cop performance, etc. YouTube and cops didn't like Think Like a Cop because I wasn't always back in the blue 100%. So I kind of changed the name to Good Luck America. So now my channel is Good Luck America. And I try to educate people on guns, government, tyranny, the disadvantages of government, the suspicions, following our Constitution. And I mean, I'm a conservative gun guy.
Would you consider yourself a thin blue line person, or
no?
No, not at all.
Absolutely not. No, I think it's bullshit that they have the flag. I think it's bullshit they put a blue on the flag. Cops, when I was around, when I worked, we were more part of the community. We served the community, and we work with the community. Now, to me, most cops are just kind of thugs out there victimizing the community and citizens, and they don't give a shit about the Constitution or laws.
I kind of share similar, and that's why I told Jason to invite you on the show, because he's always sending me your videos. And I watch some of them. I don't get to watch all of them, but I watch some of them because I sometimes I have other stuff to do, believe it or not. But I don't know about your experiences, but because my channel is more of a gun channel, I like to consider myself a First and Second Amendment activist, but a lot of people just see my channel as a gun channel. And no matter how many times I tell them this is not a gun channel, I'll talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. Every time I say something that is negative about the police or positive about anybody who does anything that, you know, the right side of the coin doesn't approve of, just outrage and losing subs. And
I feel your pain.
I was wondering if that was similar for you. Does that make it harder? Do you find you're getting a large group of people that are on the conservative side of the aisle? Do you find you're getting a lot of viewers from there that are very reticent to trust police? Or do you find you anger more of those people than you do win them over?
I would like to think I attract critical thinking people that don't just, because I don't back cops because I was a cop. I don't back the military because I was in the military. I think doctors, lawyers, nurses, all of those blue line firemen, everybody that thinks I'm Marines, everybody that thinks what I belong to is special. I'm like, dude, they're made up of humans. They're all good and bad. There ain't no great super group. So yeah. I pretty much piss everybody off equally, I think.
The one thing I've always said is every time someone says military, the best and the brightest, I always say that tells me one thing about you. You've never been in the military.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, there's good guys in the military, but it's government, and government has never been worried about a paycheck and making a profit. And if you don't have that, you're not going to have the best.
Yeah. And 7 out of 10 people in the military are there because that was their best option. It's not because they're the best at anything. Right. It's because that was their way out of their small town.
Sure.
That was back in my day, was back when judges would still say, hey, you can either do 180 days in the county jail or you can go enlist in the Marines or blah, blah, blah. So there was a whole lot of that in the military. Sure. There's a reason why people don't understand that I was involved with CID, if you know what that is. Sure. And there's a reason why our inside the military, and this is true in police departments nowadays because police have become little standing militaries of their own. Extremely high rates of rape, extremely high rates of spousal abuse, extremely high rates of violent assault, extremely high rates of all these things that are much higher than the national average inside the military, inside police. But people turn a blind eye to that because they feel like people are going to treat you like you're burning a flag if you're critical of the people in power.
Yeah.
And I've never understood that, especially amongst the right wing and people that are supposed to be more conservative, who I thought their whole thing was, we're watching the government. If they get out of line, civil war. But, you know, cops are out there every day stepping on people's rights. And they're like, you should support them because I don't really know that person or care about that person. Or that person had different political beliefs from me. So it's okay if the police bust up their protest and crack heads and, you know, all this other stuff. So how do you deal with that in your comment section? Do you get a lot of people that balk at your opinions?
My comments, I try to read all my comments because it gives me good feedback. But if I draw the line kind of personal attacks. If somebody wants to attack me personally, you know, you got a little dick, you were funny, you're this, you know, they want to attack me personally, I just block them. And, you know, I used to, when I started, you know, 10, 15, however long I've been on YouTube, I used to try and, dude, why don't you talk to me? I can try to convince, you're obviously pissed. But now I just like, if they're already at that point, there's no point in wasting the time. So I just block those people. If you want to come here and say, I think you're wrong on this, Rick, here's why. Dude, you screwed the pooch here. You missed it. I'm okay with all that. But if you just make it a personal attack, then I block you and I just move on. I get a lot of cops. That's why I changed my channel from Think Like a Cop to Good Luck America. Because when I heard Think Like a Cop, all the cops would come here thinking, oh, yeah, he's a blue line. Then as soon as I said something about the cops messing up, man, you're not back in the blue. Why aren't you? You were never a cop. And I'm like, shut up. I don't hear bullshit.
Yeah, and I was telling people just recently how it's so different now than it used to be because I went through the training and hiring process back in the 80s when I first had my experience in my training experience in law enforcement before I decided that was not the job I wanted anymore because it was dangerous for one. So I didn't want to do that. But nowadays it wouldn't be as bad. It's not as dangerous nowadays as it was back then. But I went through it then. I did my time. I got out. And then recently, not too long ago, probably about 10 years ago, I got offered to come back to work locally here. So I went through, I'd been out for so long, I couldn't lateral. I had to start all over again. So I went back, I did the physical test. I did the psychological test. I came in top of the class, even though I was one of the only guys there over 40, I still, came in top of the group. And when I went to get hired by different agencies, the agency that wanted to hire me, I went into them and they did their standard interview and they're like, oh, this is going to be boilerplate. I was so disgusted in the interview that I was like, why are all these questions geared at whether I will toe the line and support my commanding officer? And
because they want freaking, yeah, you stalled on me. I don't know if you're hearing me. Looks like you froze on my end, so I'm not hearing you. Maybe they cut you off.
Oh,
there you go. I got you back.
Okay, I think I'm back. My internet comes in and out sometimes. I live in nowhere land up here. But as I was saying, when I went through the first time, all the questions, all the interview process was about weeding you out if you were someone who had a chip on your shoulder, or weeding you out if you didn't know how to de-escalate a situation, control a situation, but de-escalate it. All the questions involved in the very first interview I went to was, hey, you're one of your fellow officers runs over someone's dog. And what do? Do you go to him? Do you go to his superior? Do you keep it to yourself? Do you go to the people whose dog it was? Like they got called, and they were asking questions like that. Like say the dog has a collar on it. Do you call that number or do you let your superior officer handle it? I'm like, what does that fucking matter if it's my sergeant or anything like that? Oh, they're like, oh, you find out your sergeant, left. This was one of the questions I actually got. You found out your sergeant pulled someone over without just cause. They did a tertiary stop, and it was and you find out that they later tell you, I just never did like that guy. I always think he's up to something. They're like, do you file a complaint over that, or is that just part of the business? You know, is that just how things go? And sometimes stuff like that leads to actual good busts. So you let it go, you know, and I'm like, what are these questions? These questions aren't about whether I know how to do my job or do I know how to make decisions under stress. These are questions like, will I
be a team player and back to blue?
Yeah. And I'm like, it was such a change going through it in the 80s and going through it in the 2000s and 10s, that it was such a clear change in what they were looking for in police officers. Back when I first went through, I know it was really hard for me to even get accepted in 1980. I'm not going to say exactly what year because I like to pretend that I'm still 48 years old. But it was so hard for me to even get accepted into the training program because I was already in the Army Reserves. And they just didn't want Army people. They didn't want Marines. They didn't want any of that. They're like, your mindset is wrong. You know, you don't have the right mindset for law enforcement. You're a soldier, not a peace officer. And I had to jump through hoops to get accepted. Now it's like that's all they openly recruit is ex-military. And it shows me how.
I don't know. I kind of see the opposite, especially in liberal cities. They don't want anybody in the military because they think they're too aggressive and they've seen too much and they've got too much weapons training, and they want more non-fighting. These Gen X freaking don't know which bathroom to use, and I want to be friendly and etc.
I don't know what city you're in, but I'm in Washington State, and here it's almost our law enforcement departments are 85% ex-military.
Yeah. If you're more in rural areas, I would probably agree.
In Alabama, it's probably even worse. Back where I used to be in West Virginia, it's probably 80-90% at least ex-military now. Used to be you had maybe 5% ex-military, and they were usually in administrative level jobs. You know, they were the sergeant behind the desk, or they were the patrol captain, or they were something like that. You know, they weren't out on the street. They were the guy pushing the papers and making sure everything was dotted and crossed and etc. But now it's just like when I look at the military makeup of police officers, like a perfect example too of attitude. Back when I was in law enforcement, if I went up to I had to stop and I went up and make contact with a person on the highway. If I didn't take my glasses off before I started talking to them and they told my superior officer that, I'd get in trouble because I was trying to intimidate them. You know, we definitely didn't walk up, jackbooted out with our glasses on and we had to have, we had things we had to say first to try to diffuse situations and be like we were, the kindly officer and we were being polite and all this other stuff. Nowadays, they just walk up on you dressed like some sort of stormtrooper and start demanding information.
Looking for a reason to say you resisted or you're not complying or get out of the car, stay in the car.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. I'm disgusted with cops now.
When I watch these videos and I see so many situations that get to, would you step out of the car, please? I'm like, there's no reason for this to have gotten to that level. And that's the worst thing you could possibly do right now.
In Texas, they make all traffic stops. In California, most traffic violations was called an infraction. And you can't be arrested. You can't go to jail for an infraction. You get a ticket and you sign a promise to appear. Now, if you don't sign a promise to appear, that's a misdemeanor. They can arrest you. But as long as you sign a ticket, they can't arrest you. Texas, every violation is a misdemeanor. They can arrest you for not using a turn signal. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. So that gives cops this, I can take you to jail. I'm doing you a favor. You better kiss my ass or I'll take you to jail. And that's just way too much power in my book.
It is way too much power. And I know I personally don't suffer from it too much. I've had contacts with law enforcement in recent years, and I don't really get abused because, well, one, I'm a middle-aged white guy who drives a vehicle that looks like I could probably afford an attorney. So I don't get as much trouble. But I see if you drive like an old 82 beater, whether you've got money or not, they're going to harass you. If you're a minority, they're going to harass you. It's sad that we live in a state where they will make judgment calls. And I've had officers tell me this when they choose not to do something to someone that they would do to something else. Well, that guy looks like he's the kind that would make trouble. Like he would, get an attorney. He would file a lawsuit. He would blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, if that's one of the things you're using to judge how you do your job,
Yeah.
Well, that just shows you're abusing your power, because anytime anybody can fight back, you don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't. That's why I think cops now, that mainly they're ticket writers, because they don't want to deal with the real bad people. And
they're revenue actors, yeah.
Yeah, they want to take the easy, I'll write you a ticket, and the judge knows me, and he's always going to rule in my favor, so you ain't got a chance of winning anyway. Just pay the ticket.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they've really turned into. Is they serve two purposes these days: to gather revenue for the state and to maintain the rules of the state. Not to maintain peace, to maintain the status quo, the rule of the state.
And to justify their job and their existence and get stats and to say we're working and money and keep the courts in business. It's a racket, and it's just at the expense of, what I say is the pesky citizen out there trying to make a living, pay his taxes, go to work, raise his kids. Leave him the fuck alone. I don't know if you want to cuss. Sorry, I don't.
Oh, I don't give a fuck. Okay. I cuss all the time. This ain't for kids, so don't worry about it. I don't even let my own kids watch this show. Now, you and I are probably very different in our political opinions, because I tend to be a moderate. I lean left on some things, right on some things, but I'm generally a moderate. But I don't see policing and how people react to police. I don't understand how people from either side can be so blind to what's going on. The government is building these little armies in every city that are funded by the government, trained by the government, given reason to exist by the government, fed by the media to try to convince people there's reason for them to exist. When the media is trying to convince you that crime is at all-time high rates. Well, I remember serving in law enforcement in the 80s when crime was at all-time high rates.
Right.
And it's totally different now than it was then. For one, it's so much safer in society nowadays. It's so much safer to be a police officer. Police officers aren't asked to take any risk nowadays. It used to be serve and protect, even at your own risk.
Exactly. Now the Supreme Court says they don't have to act. They can sit there and watch you get victimized and not even act.
Yeah. So it's just such a turnaround, and I really can't. I don't know how to rectify it in my brain that people who are always talking about things like Civil War and don't obey bad gun laws and blah 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 turn right around and drop to their knees and lick the boots of every single cop they meet. I even see it locally. Like, I shop at, gun shops and stuff locally. And when I'm in there, I just know, well, these people in here, they love the police. I don't like the police. I don't pretend to like the police. I know they're always like, well, we're doing a fundraiser with the county sheriff. I don't care.
No, yeah.
I don't want to hear about that's you, and I'm glad you're having fun, but I don't care for it at all.
Yeah, I think the police thing. I mean, a lot of people call me a libertarian. I think I'm more on a conservative, definitely physical conservative, but I don't think I lean left on anything. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty anti-left, but I am not a back the blue conservative. Most conservative Republicans, for some reason, they feel like it's their goal to back police. They're all your friends, and it's your civic duty to back them. And I'm just like, they're freaking government, and it's your civic duty to hold them accountable and responsible to the people, not to kiss their ass. But
now they're not even local government. Nowadays, they're basically federal government. Even when you're looking at your city police, they're pretty much federal government, because most of that funding has been taken away out of the state budgets and been subsidized by federal authorities.
The sheriffs are still probably the closest to the people's law enforcement.
Well, that's because that's usually in county budgets, and they're funded.
And they're elected. Yeah. They don't get appointed by these left-wing, Well,
they're trying to change that in some places. Wow. Like here in Seattle, I think up in King County, up where Seattle and Washington, they're trying to make the sheriff an appointed position. And I'm like, well, then that's not a sheriff. That's just the chief of police. That's just a politician. Chief of police is always the most political guy that you could possibly find.
Sure.
Whoever's in charge finds him. And I just can't, I don't understand that. Do you have any better understanding of why these people that are supposed to be so, suspicious of authority suspend all that when it comes to police? What's been your experiences with that?
Yeah, I guess I see it as hate the police have kind of become a mantra of Antifa and the crazy left. So if you hate the police especially will attack you because they want you to lick their boots and think you owe it to them. So they will call you Antifa, left-wing, liberal, whatever. But you know what? It is what it is. You earn the hate is my book. And cops have earned all the hate they get. They're part of government. They're rule followers. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about their oath. They don't care about the community. They don't care about citizens. They don't care about who they victimize. They have no accountability. They can't be sued. They've got immunity from lawsuits. The DAs won't prosecute them because most jurors won't convict them. So they run around uncontrolled. It's total chaos and it's bullshit. But
well, the DAs also won't convict them because, you know, tomorrow they might need that same officer's testimony to put someone else away so that they can get a promotion and a raise later when they move on to a bigger job.
Sure.
So I've dealt with that many a times in my life. I used to work for Child Protective Services, and I can tell you, you know, can't say a ton of stuff because, you know, you're limited in what you can say when someone's not found guilty of something. But I would say a good 30% of the cases we dealt with on child abuse and domestic issues was law enforcement officers. And I always used to say cops can get away with rape, even if it's a child, because
I've never dealt, from my experience with cops, they drink a lot, they violate the rules, they think they're above the law. They're high risk, kind of like firemen, anybody, fighter pilots, anybody in a high risk position, like sexy women, sex, drinking, partying, they like risk taking. So cops used to be risk takers, and that behavior usually leads to cheating on the wives, maybe aggressive, getting drunk, doing shit they shouldn't be doing. But rape and in serious crimes, in my experience, most cops won't look the other way on most things. I mean, I had a cop that was looking at child porn on his freaking videos at home, and we took it to our chief, and he was in our agency, and the chief deleted all the shit and said, I took care of it. I counseled him on, you know, he deleted all the evidence. And we were like, that's fucked up. But we couldn't do anything about it now because it was gone.
Yeah. And I've seen that a lot more because like I said, I worked for CPS, and I saw how many cases never actually became a case because the person involved was a police officer, and the DA's like, well, I don't have enough evidence to actually convict him. You would have pushed this against any other parent. You would have pushed this. But because the person that hit them has a badge, or the person that, you know, that did anything else inappropriate, has a badge, you choose not to convict.
All government protects government. It's just, you know, that's just what they do. They don't want to lose their power. And if they go after government, they know they'll lose their power.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, that you're considered a libertarian. People call me a libertarian all the time. And I'm like, no, I'm not a libertarian, because a libertarian was a political movement that was, you know, sponsored by the Koch brothers. And I'm definitely not a member of that. I call myself a liberal, and people get upset because, oh, you're a leftist. I'm like, no, I'm a liberal, you know, as in Jeffersonian liberal, as in I believe in you should deal with every subject in the manner it deserves to be dealt with. I don't believe in dogmas or preconceived ideas that are forced upon me by one political party or the other, or one conservative or liberal think tank or the other. I think every person should be able to think for themselves. And that's the number one. It's the only skill you need to have. You don't have to be super educated on politics or anything. You just have to be able to think for yourself. And you
got all those guns behind you, and you claim to be a liberal. I just
definitely hardcore liberal.
Really?
Jeffersonian liberal. Yes.
Oh my God, dude, I don't get it. I mean, the left is so the old left.
I'm not on the left. The left and liberal is two different things.
Oh, like, so I see them as the same.
Huh?
I see them as the same.
Well, they're not. Left and liberalism and leftism and leftist is two different things. People that call themselves, you know, who would be a good example? Like someone like Kamala Harris. She's not liberal. She's a leftist. When you look at extreme right and left, they're all just fascists. They just cater to different crowds and when they try to win them over. I consider liberalism to be like right in the middle, because as Jefferson said, who's basically the founder of liberalism in this country, and the way we see it, is you don't get saddled with the fascism of the right or the fascism of the left. You don't say, oh, I'm a Democrat, so therefore I got to be pro abortion and anti-gun. And you don't say, well, I'm on the right, so I got to be pro-gun and anti-choice. If you get saddled with those things, you're just selling out to one form of fascism or another.
Do you think the right and a conservative is the same?
Oh, no.
Oh, really?
No, conservatism is different than being a right-wing person. Right-wing people completely sell their souls to the ideals of the right-wing ideology, you know, and
what is the right-wing ideology?
Oh, right nowadays, it's, like I said, different type of fascism than the left. It's the convince everyone that they're victims, convince everyone that they're in danger, tell them to turn over all power to us. Let's support big business at any cost. Well, that's both left and right, but they do it under different guises. Let's protect the status quo. You know, that's, to me, that's right wing. And everyone gets their talking points on pet issues. Like if you've got a politician telling you how you got to feel about abortion, or how you got to feel about guns, or how you got to feel about gay people, or how you got to feel about anything like that, well, then you're not a free thinker. You're right, or you're either a righty or a lefty, or you're indoctrinated to one type of fascism or another.
So if you support the Constitution and think it's right, are you left or right?
That's center as far as I'm concerned, because I think the Constitution is what I would call fair. You know, I think it treats everyone evenly, and it gets everybody.
It's supposed to be for individual rights, but
yeah,
it
hasn't been lately.
Right.
Lately, more these days, it's more about corporate rights, and that started, you know, really under Reagan, where they started saying, "Oh, corporations are people, and these things are for corporations." And
what about illegal rights? You don't think it's for that? Illegal rights?
Illegal? You mean illegal immigrants?
Yeah.
Well, I don't call them illegals. I call them criminal immigrants.
Oh, good.
Because I think actions are illegal. People are criminals. So I call them criminal immigrants. And no, when you're actually in the well, for one, if you're not an American citizen, I don't think you should be able to suck at the teat of the Constitution. And two, if you're actually a criminal committing a crime, well, then you're always on the, you know, you're never in a situation where you get to say, this is my right. You're committing a crime.
Yeah, but when the state has got so many crimes and you can't do anything, everything you do is a crime, then where are you?
Well, I mean, I don't, I'm not understanding exactly what you're saying, asking me, but if you're saying, do I think illegal immigrants should have rights? Well, I mean, they have human rights, but they don't have the same constitutional rights as citizens of the United States.
I'm not sure what the benefit of being a citizen is.
Well, I mean, that's a different argument altogether. Is it saying, you know, that's saying that thing that they came here, that everybody used to come here and want to be because it was so great, is it actually so great anymore? Is it worth protecting? That's a completely different argument.
Wow. Seeing all those guns, I had no idea that you were going to say you were a liberal.
Oh, I
don't know very many liberals. I don't really talk to them. Most of them are screaming out of control in your face. And when you described what you thought the far right was, I thought you were describing the left and liberals.
They're basically the same. They're just, like I said, they're just two different sides of the same fascist coin. It's just that they've both divvied up 50% of the population, and they've indoctrinated that 50% of the population into believing certain things. And then they cater to those beliefs to try to get those people to vote a certain way. And they have to do it like that because they have to keep people divided. Because if people weren't fighting with their neighbors, well, then they would start fighting with their congressman. And they don't want that to happen. They don't want you to see, like, hey, what's my state senator doing? Like, what kind of money is he making? How's he living his life? What's this? They want you
to he's fucking voting to give Ukraine more damn money.
Yeah, he wants you to pay attention to what your neighbor's doing, not what they're doing.
All politicians are always pointing. I mean, that's just, to me, you know, it's not me, it's him, it's you, it's whatever.
And I'm sure, like I said, we would disagree on a lot of different.
So if you're a liberal, you're probably pretty anti-Trump, I would say.
Not really, no.
Oh, really?
No, I'm not any more pro-Trump than I am any other politician, but I'm not anti-Trump. I don't go around making videos like, oh, Trump's the fucking Antichrist, or Trump's going to destroy democracy. I'm always just like, Trump's going to do what other politicians do. He's going to do what's best for Trump, and he's going to do nothing for us, just like they don't ever do anything for us. All they do is they get in there and they start sucking off the tit of all the big corporate money and all this other shit and the fancy parties.
Do you think Trump loves the country?
Oh, no more so than any other politician.
Wow. You think Biden loves the country?
Oh, God, no.
Okay. Well, that was a more direct answer than on Trump. At least Trump got no.
Like I said, that's another thing. Like, please, I don't understand why anyone, if someone asks you, hey, who's your favorite politician? In today's age, if you can answer that, then I'm like, well, then you're fucking drinking the Kool-Aid somewhere, because there ain't none of them that's doing anything for you.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if I'd have a favorite either, but I guess I would have to say Trump, only because he's not a career politician. I'm so anti re-electing these same pieces of shit over and over, like you said, that just sit up there and suck on the government tit. Get new people in, and Trump's new people in my book. He's made his living, and he's coming in from the outside.
Well, when Trump got elected the first time, and I've got videos on this where I said, you know, here's what's either going to happen. Either Trump's going to get in there and he's going to be different and he's going to make some change, or he's going to get in there and he's going to just be completely incompetent, and maybe the system will collapse, and maybe the system deserves to collapse, if that's what you're worried about. If one man can break it, then it was already broke. Or he's just going to do what every other politician does and nothing's going to change. And it turned out to be number three. He just basically did what every other politician does. He said some things that other politicians wouldn't say, but did he do anything?
You don't think he was good on the border?
No, not really. I mean, look what was going on. Same thing's going on now. They never made any. What laws did Congress pass to restrict the border while Trump was president?
Well, Trump can't make Congress pass laws.
That's
but
right.
He did some executive orders to stay in Mexico, which severely dropped the number of people. If they couldn't come in, they
didn't drop the number of people, and that got struck down because that was unconstitutional. Because the president can't do that. Congress has to do that. That's not a power the president enjoys, nor should he enjoy. He shouldn't get to change the laws regarding anything, much less immigration and other important things. That's Congress's job. They're supposed to be protecting the country too. They always talk about how the president's the commander in chief and supposed to protect the country. Yeah, when the military is involved. Otherwise, it's supposed to be Congress protecting its country. They're supposed to be passing laws preventing people from being victimized. They're supposed to be passing laws protecting our way of life.
There's laws on legal immigration.
Yeah, there are. Right now, those laws allow pretty much anyone who claims asylum to come in. And those laws need to change. They need to be tightened up. They need to be gotten rid of. All these, because here's the thing. Both sides want illegal immigration. Both sides want illegal immigrants because the big corporate farms that, Alabama is basically one big corporate farm. And that's where I came from before I moved here. And you think they want immigration to dry up? No, they don't.
Most farms are mechanical tractor.
Most farms require people to pick the fruit. There's no machines that pick apples off trees. They go around, they have tree shakers now, but people still have to gather up the fruit, sort the fruit, clean the fruit, etc. And that's mostly illegal immigrants that do that. So most people who go out and work the fields, that's mostly illegal immigrants. People who feed the cattle and people who march them into the stalls, mostly illegal immigrants. People who build the windows for things like Pella, mostly illegal immigrants. We got a big, well, they weren't Pella, they were something else before. But, the big triple pane window manufacturers, they're like the biggest manufacturer in the country. Their biggest plant's here in Portland. It's 95% illegal aliens. My sister worked there for 3 years, couldn't get a raise because they would just hire another illegal. She said they got raided twice in those 3 years. Every time they would just haul everybody out of there, take them downtown, process them, let them go. They'd be back to work the next day with a different name tag on. And Pella just kept doing it because every time they got caught, they paid a $5,000 fine, but they were paying people slave wages to work, and it was 95% illegals. Big business counts on that still.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that, but we can agree to disagree. Let me ask you a question. You think the country's better off now than it was under Trump?
I don't think it's any worse off.
Oh my God, dude, are you serious?
How is it worse?
Freaking 7 million people that came across the border. 7 million.
That's every year. There's millions of new people. But how is it? That number goes up.
You don't think prices are higher at the gas pumps? He shut down our energy.
How's the president got anything to do with that? I don't understand that.
He's the one that shut down the pipeline.
Well, that pipeline just did tar sands from Canada. That's not anything used for fuel.
You don't think the president? What do you think the president does?
President runs the military, runs and oversees the Congress, etc. That's his job. He doesn't control the price of milk or anything like that. That's big business does that more. It's like right now with inflation, every single predictor of inflation, every single study on inflation shows that right now what's driving inflation is corporate greed. Because corporations are being allowed to do what they want to do with no ramifications, and there's no competition because one company owns everything.
So when Trump was in, he didn't do anything, but Biden's in, and you're saying he didn't do anything. So why do we have a president?
Well, yeah, why do we have a Congress is the better answer. Why do we have a Congress? They're not changing. Here's the thing. Let's just look at it this way. When Bush was president, he had the presidency, the Senate, the House for years. Did they pass any pro-gun laws? Did they close the border?
Well, you ain't got to get me defending any of those sleazy stuff in Washington.
Just like when Biden's president, they don't do well. They wouldn't be expected to close the border or pass pro-gun laws, but they don't really pass anything else that would help.
So you don't think Ukraine and Putin and China wanting time? None of that has anything to do with Biden.
What about Putin? Putin doesn't like Biden.
Yeah, but he didn't move into Ukraine until Biden got in. He didn't do it when Trump was in. Why do you think that is?
Do you know when he took Crimea?
He took Crimea. I agree.
Yeah, that's an invasion right there.
I don't think that was in Trump. That was before Trump.
Yeah, so he took Crimea, and did he get out of Crimea when Trump
but you see, you're talking about Putin. I'm talking about right now. He didn't do that when Trump was in. So, I mean, for you to say that there's no difference between Trump and Biden.
Crimea the whole time Trump was in, and Trump went over and said, hey, he's a good guy doing great things. I'm sorry, I'm not a pro. I worked in military intelligence for years, and I dealt mostly with Turkey, but I dealt with other foreign powers over there too. And I can tell you right now, Putin is a verified evil dictator. And anybody who would even pretend that he's anything else is either got ulterior motives for it, or they're just delusional, because that guy is the worst of the worst.
At least he takes care of Russia. I don't think Biden likes America.
He doesn't take care of Russia.
He does a lot better than Biden takes care of America.
Oh no, go live in Russia. Here's a story. Did you see that story?
Snowden's living there.
Did you see that story about the people in Canada that sold their farm and all their stuff? They had millions of dollars. After they sold everything, they had millions of dollars. But they moved from Canada to Russia because Russia is free of all this, left-wing ideology, blah, 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 whatever. So they moved over there where people can be free and they don't have to put up with things like government stuff and blah, blah, blah. What happened to them when they first got there? Got their bank account seized. They post a video about how things don't work in Russia like they thought they did, how they're being mistreated. Russia's Secret Service shows up at their door. Next day, they're posting videos apologizing for the first video. They're still stuck there with no money, can't do anything, and have no rights because they moved to Russia, thinking Russia was a place where they take care of their citizens.
Putin must not be that bad. Biden got that freaking piece of shit basketball player that was arrested for drugs out.
I don't give a shit about that. That did not do anybody good. That was PR. Who the fuck needs her?
That's what I'm saying.
But that doesn't, and I'm sure Putin got something for it. But Russian citizens live below what we would consider sub-poverty. That's their standard of living over there.
Did you see when Tucker Carlson just went over there? Did you watch his videos?
Oh, no, I am not going to justify Tucker Carlson's pro-Russia propaganda by watching it. That's all fake stuff for the guy who's there to promote that person, that ruler. I don't fall for propaganda videos. I don't.
So you don't like Tucker Carlson?
No, not if he's going over there and sucking Vladimir Putin's dick.
How do you know unless you watch the video? You didn't even see the interview.
I've seen his interviews. I read the transcripts. I don't need to watch the video.
Dude.
What do you think is positive about why would someone like Tucker Carlson go over and do something positive about Vladimir Putin?
I watched the video and he got his side, and Putin justified why he went in, and I thought he explained it pretty damn well on how NATO was encroaching and how they were taking over. And when we took Ukraine,
you don't think Ukraine has a right to be a NATO member or not be a NATO member if they choose to as a free nation?
That wasn't the agreement. We took their nukes. They had nuclear weapons when the USSR split up. And we said, if you give up your nukes, we will protect you from Russia. And Russia said, I don't care. I don't have a problem with that, but you can never make them NATO because I don't want NATO on my borders.
Well,
And
they're
we
not
said,
NATO.
okay, that's the truth. That's the treaty.
Well, they're not NATO. Ukraine's not NATO. So why do you invade Ukraine?
Well, evidently there were talks about making NATO, and Biden just came out and said they're admitting him
Well,
to
they are
NATO.
now because they got attacked. But before they attacked, they
Yeah,
weren't.
but the whole purpose of NATO is so you pay for protection before you get attacked. It's not so when you, it's like, oh, I don't want to have car insurance until I get in a wreck, then I don't get car insurance.
But they got attacked. They didn't get protected. They got attacked. They're actually right now in a war with Russia.
Well,
they're
some
not
are told.
NATO.
You believe that? I don't know if I believe that.
Well, I would have to disagree with you on that. But like I said, they got attacked. Now Sweden's been neutral for centuries, and now they're in NATO because of Vladimir Putin. That's why they're in NATO now, because they fear his expansionist ideas and how he wants to take over most of Europe. So that's just the way it is over there. So I am not going to ever I mean, you can support Putin all you want. I don't care. But I'm never, ever going to do anything that would in any way support Putin or the propaganda machine that he operates. Like I said, I worked in CID. I worked in military intelligence. I watched how this bread was fucking baked, their propaganda bullshit every day. And if anybody falls for any of the stuff coming out of that country, they really should do their research a little bit better.
I watched the video. I thought Tucker did a great job
interviewing. Propaganda video. If I watched a video made by Kraft, I'm going to bet that they're going to say their mac and cheese is the best ever, and I'm going to understand that that's coming from their propaganda.
Yeah, but a propaganda video would not be Tucker asking him hard questions and kind of irritating him, and Putin getting irritated with him. But
why wouldn't it be? Because you got to put on theater. That's one of the biggest That's one of the biggest propaganda tricks in the world. Take one position, have someone challenge you on it, act like you're angry, then other people go the other way when you really want them to go the other way anyway. Or you want to convince them that, oh, look, this is a hard-hitting interview. He's mad. He ain't mad. If he was mad at any moment, that Tucker Carlson wouldn't have been there.
So Putin's bad. So Putin's bad. Trump's bad. Biden's bad. Is it anybody? I mean,
they're not all the same level of bad. People like Biden and Trump are just selfish. Putin is a monster.
What about China?
Well, China's not an expansionist nation. They're more interested in selling everybody their products, controlling industry in other countries, etc. They're a totally different beast than Russia. I'm not pro-China, which is why I actually some of the things some of the things Trump did that I agreed with was when he started putting tariffs on things. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you can't do that. We did that during World War I and after World War I, and look what happened in World War II." I'm like, you can't compare what's going on today with what happened in 1935. We live in a different world. I'm all for saying, hey, if you want to sell your products here, we're going to charge you tariffs to put your product that's made by slave labor on an even footing with products that are made here by people making a living wage. And I have no problem with saying to other countries, especially like NATO countries, etc., that count on us to defend them, hey, if you want to buy cheap Chinese products, great, but don't count on us to protect you. If you're going to buddy up,
sounds like you kind of want the U.S. to be a bully and have everybody play by our rules.
It's not a bully to say, "Hey, I'm not going to work for you if you don't pay me." That's not being a bully.
If we're telling other countries on where they can buy their products, you don't feel that's us being the world police and the world domination?
How are you dominating if you give them the right to go buy whatever they want and do what they want?
Well, in their mind, they may think since we need protection, we have no choice.
Well, that's their fault. Who got them in a situation where they need protection? I didn't do that. Did you do that? I didn't tell France to spend all their money on social programs and not build a decent military.
Who's telling us to spend it on social programs?
I didn't tell Germany to do that either, or Greece or any of those countries to do that.
We're doing it.
Yeah. Well, we spend such a small portion of our budget on social programs. The vast majority of our budget, the biggest single section of our budget is what? Military defense.
Sure. Yeah.
NASA,
military. Yeah.
Places like Germany spend 10 times as much money on giving people grants to go produce, art made out of frozen piss over actually funding a military. So if that's their choice, more power to them. But we shouldn't suffer because of us. Just because my neighbor's an idiot, I shouldn't have to cover his bills. You know what I mean? And if he wants,
you okay with the Ukraine money we're giving?
Well, we don't really give them cash all that much. And you got to remember, one of the things when you look at these deals, the vast majority of stuff we send them is in goods, like bombs and trucks and tanks, etc.
That's double talk, though, because when we send it to them, we have to rebuy it new.
But what do we do with it if we keep it?
We don't have to rebuy it and spend more money.
No, we still have to rebuy it. Our contracts require we rebuy those things every so many years. So like if let's say we've had a tank for 5 years or 4.5 years, and the contract we have with that defense contractor is that every 5 years we replace this tank. Well, if we send it over to Ukraine, well, then that gets to count as part of our budget of paying off the Ukraine. If we keep it in 6 months, we burn it.
What are we paying off Ukraine for?
No, we get to count that as money we gave away. It's like you get to write it off on your taxes. Like when you give something away instead. It's like my food in here that I have. I have food that's good for 30 years, right. The freeze-dried food. I keep it for 20, and then I donate it to a food bank, and I get to write it all off. If I kept it for 30, I just got to throw it away and buy it again. So same thing with our industrial complex. You got to remember, these things are on automatic replacement timeframes, meaning that if they buy a plane, if they buy a tank, if they buy a truck, they have to replace it every so many years.
You say they like it has to do. This is taxpayer money.
Well,
we don't have to do anything.
But it's our government contracts. That's what the government contracts are.
But our government's making those contracts on the taxpayers' backs. It's wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong, but that's the way it is right now. I mean, I'm not saying that it's right that, like, say, when we were doing Desert Storm, when I was over in Iraq, when trucks would break down, they had a flat tire. We were told, set them on fire and walk away because Halliburton gets price plus to replace it. So stuff like that, it's ridiculously stupid contracts, but those are the contracts we have. So when you're giving away, it's like giving away all that stuff we give away to Ukraine and other countries for defense. If we kept it, we would have to burn it and rebuy it anyway, which is what we do. I used to go and help my grandfather bury tanks in the TNT area because they were up for replacement on contract. So they would take them, cut the barrels off of them, drive them into a hole, fill them with cement, come up, even though they're perfectly good.
That's not the point. The point, I would rather bury it than give it to them to use against us or to sell it and line their own pockets. I mean, you think Ukraine's an honorable country?
They're not going to be using it against us. For one, there's an ocean between us. So unless we invade them, they're not going to be using it against us. So I ain't worried.
If they sell it to other terrorists to make money,
it ain't worth all that much money is the thing. But if they give it to terrorists, well, then that's the terrorist and on them and the terrorist. That's not on me. It's like if I give a homeless man $1 and he goes and uses it to buy salt and throws it in someone's eyes, well, that's not on me that he did that. I just gave a homeless man $1. I did something good.
So if you give me a gun and I go shoot somebody, that's not on you?
It's on me. I give you a gun.
I think the law would disagree.
If you don't have a gun for self-defense and you're a legal, law-abiding citizen that can own a gun, and I say, hey, I give away 4 guns every month to people who can't afford them. So, and then you take that gun and commit a crime with it, I'm not responsible for that. The law wouldn't hold me responsible for that. That's on you. You made that choice afterwards. I did a good thing, giving someone who couldn't afford.
I'll give you another analogy. If you're a bartender and you serve somebody till they're drunk, they don't kill somebody, they hold the bartender responsible.
Yeah, because you overserved them. And you could see that then you can only get charged with that if they were visibly drunk in your presence. You have to know. That's just like saying if I give someone a gun and I know they're a felon, well, then, yeah, of course I'm going to get in trouble. If I serve, I've owned bars. I owned a martini lounge in Portland. I owned part of a strip club. So if I serve someone who's noticeably drunk in my presence, and then yes, I do accept some liability, whether I like it or not.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I think I'm with you on that personal choice. If somebody wants to drink, that's their business.
Which is why the only thing I did with that, I always told my bartenders, if anybody gets intoxicated, free cab. We pay for it. We have a tab with the cab company. You stick them in a cab, you send them home. I won't worry as much about, oh, they've had 3 drinks. If I give them 4, they're going to be drunk. I'm like, don't worry so much about that. If they get drunk and they're drunk in your presence, free cab, send them wherever they want. The bar will pay for it. So I just dealt with that aspect that way. But, you know, like I say, the only really, and it's really hard to push that on bartenders. It happens so infrequently because it is very hard to prove that anyone was acting intoxicated in that person's presence.
Well, so, if they got the bill and you served them 14 drinks, that's
but who keeps? We never even gave bills at my restaurant 90% of the time. It was 90% cash business. You put cash across the bar, you got your drink.
Well, that's going to go away as soon as we get digital. What's your opinion on digital cash?
It's probably something that's going to happen, but I don't really. It's not anything I love. Let's just say that. I can't really speak on it completely, but I have like I'm not an expert, so I can't sit here and say something.
Yeah,
like
but you can have an opinion. I mean, I think it's horrible for freedom.
I'm setting it up that this is my opinion because I'm not an expert on currencies or anything like that. But to me, it's surrender of control of one more aspect of your life, and I don't like that because what's to stop the government from saying, "Oh, this guy's a dissident. This guy says things we don't like. I bet if we turn off his access to his money for a couple of weeks, he'll start saying things we do like." Right. So that's the problem I see with it. Unfortunately, when you make an opinion like that, everyone goes, you're one of them slippery slope. You know, everything's going to.
I am a slippery slope. The government is a slippery slope, and you ought to learn that through history.
Yeah, there is such a thing as a slippery slope. Sometimes the slope is slippery. Now, everything doesn't lead to something bad. It's like someone said yesterday, don't you admit that 90% of protests sometimes, have a potential of getting out of hand and somebody getting hurt? And I'm like, well, yeah, but me walking to the grocery store has a chance of getting out of hand and someone getting hurt. So I can't say every slope is slippery, but I think when you're giving away a fundamental right or a fundamental power, I guess, to engage in commerce on your own without the government or any other big businesses being involved, when you surrender that right, you're putting yourself in a delicate situation.
Government has proven throughout decades of history, the more information they have, the more they will use it against the people. And once they get the digital currency, I think our freedom, especially somebody that's a gun owner or is on the wrong political side, is going to be targeted, and it's not going to be good.
Well, I've told people that all the time. I tell them all the time. It's the more power you let government have, you're just screwing yourself. And it's so often, it's like when police, going back to the police thing, when police say something like, oh, we've got to be given more power to go in and crack down. If anything looks out of sort in one of these protests, we need to have more power to go in and shut it down right now. And I'm like, well, and a lot of people on the right, as you've probably said, yeah, the police need to go in there and crack those people's heads. And I'm like, well, yeah, but what if they make it to where every time we have a protest, all they have, you make it to where that's the standard, where as soon as anybody does anything illegal, they don't deal with that individual. They just shut down the whole thing. Well, all they got to do is put one sympathetic person in each crowd to throw a rock at a cop, and everybody gets their head busted every time they try to do a protest. So people don't think ahead, I don't think, on a lot of things.
Well, any government in Oakland, the cops were always filing resisting arrest so much that the DA finally said, unless the cop gets stitches, I ain't filing any charges for resisting arrest.
Exactly.
And that stopped the bullshit, of I'll arrest you for resisting. But
yeah, the resisting arrest is so misused.
Oh, it's bullshit. It's total bullshit.
Especially when it's not a legal arrest. I'm like, how do you get someone for resisting an illegal arrest? That's like saying,
that's because people have the misconception that you can fight an illegal arrest. You really can't. The government's right to you.
Everybody, the best place to fight a bad cop is in a courtroom.
Yeah.
With a lawyer on your side. On the side of the road, you don't got a lot going.
You're going to lose every time.
Unless you're willing to shoot it out with them, which I would say 90% of the time you're probably going to win.
Yeah.
At that moment, because they probably don't know how to use their gun and never ever you'd fight back. But that's not going to put you in a better situation. That's going to put you in a worse. Shut your mouth and wait till you got a lawyer standing next to you in front of a judge. And that's what cops really fear. That's what
you broke up. I couldn't hear something about shut your mouth. You're still frozen.
Shut your mouth and wait until you're in front of a judge with a lawyer. That's what cops are really afraid of. That's when they're really terrified. They're not afraid of you on the side of the road because they know you're not going to do anything, and they got all the law on their side and blah, blah, blah. And they got the government backing them up. But once it's you and an attorney standing in front of a judge in a courtroom, then they're terrified. So that's what you do. You just shut up and wait till your turn.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know if anybody's asking any questions in the comments. I haven't seen.
I don't know. Anybody got any questions? Let's open it up to questions. We've just been talking. I'll stick around a little longer here. Let me see. There's a couple questions over here. Let's see. Since I'm the one to hook this up, I deserved a small discount in the TYMP. And remember, all Acorn lives matter. Back to the blue till they abuse you. And then that was Officer Tater Hater, by the way, who I don't think you know, Jason. I think he got that name because there's a guy named Officer Tate who does videos that are just bullshit, and I started calling him Officer Tater, so he calls himself Officer Tater.
I think he does. He's very pro cop, and cops never do anything wrong in his eyes. So he's a back the blue kind of guy, 100%. I
think that's why I started calling him Officer Tater.
Yeah.
Casey Two Guns, a path to end qualified immunity was discovered. Used a revised copy of the law that was missing 16 words, meaning there is no qualified immunity. The case is appealed to the Supreme Court. Well, I don't know about that particular case.
I don't think cops are going to lose immunity. The qualified immunity came with government authorities. They didn't want politicians to be sued. They didn't want mayors to be sued. And so they kind of started with them, and then it slowly morphed into, well, all government officials have this limited immunity, so we don't tie up. And it just gave more corruption to government. Anytime you give more power, no accountability, I don't think mayors ought to have it. I don't think judges have complete immunity on the bench. They can't be for anything. But DAs have qualified immunity. Cops have qualified immunity. They say it's qualified, but it doesn't matter.
No, it's just immunity from anything that you can prove they did.
Exactly. I mean, the ruling for the Supreme Court is you can't violate or puncture the immunity protection unless you can point to a case where it was actually proven, and then you can point to that case. Well, since they have qualified immunity, you can't ever get a case against them. So it's like there's no way to break it.
It's like saying you can't win your argument until you win your case, but the whole argument is that you don't have the legal right to bring a case.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty fucked up. Someone says State of the Union is on right now. I can't think of anything I would like to watch less.
Yeah, I would agree. I ain't watching it.
People who watch these things, I
used to kind of like to watch it, but the country's so I don't believe anybody. Everything's lies, and I'm just like, I don't care what they say. It doesn't matter. I look at what I'm paying at the pumps, what groceries are costing. When I read the news about Russia, China, Iran, the border, the whole world's in chaos right now, and people are running around like, well, it'll work out.
I agree with you on that. I mean, I've been all over the world, and I've seen places in chaos. I don't think the world's in that much chaos right now.
I think it's the worst I've ever seen in my life.
Whoops, I lost.
Yeah, I think you froze up again. Hello.
All right, I'm back. I just don't think the world's in as bad a situation as people like to make you think it is. And I think they like to make you think it is so that you'll be scared and you'll surrender more authority. But as someone who's older.
He just said Putin's a bad guy. He's moving nukes toward Ukraine right now.
But Russia's always been bad. It's not like if they just suddenly became bad. They've been bad for decades. They've been building they were always a modern day Roman Empire. That was what the Soviet Union was about.
3 years ago, he wasn't in Ukraine. He wasn't moving nukes. That's changed. Huh?
How many years ago did you say?
3, right? That's when he went into Ukraine. Spent going on 3 years.
Before that, Crimea was Ukraine.
Well, I take Crimea as a separate one. He was already yeah.
Actually, that would just be like saying they didn't attack America. Mexico just seized Texas. That's attacking America. Because that's what Putin did. So, like, if Mexico moved their armies into Texas right now and took over, that'd still be an attack on America.
If it was an attack on Ukraine when he took Crimea, why didn't Ukraine go to war then? Why did they wait till?
Well, they didn't have any means to. What were they supposed to do? They can't fight Russia.
Well, then how are they doing it now?
Everybody else is helping them because they got attacked more generally. When it was controlled, when it was limited to a certain specific part of the country, people were willing to look the other way. when Putin got more aggressive and countries that border the rest of Ukraine got nervous, then they started helping out. But they didn't help out of the kindness of their hearts or because they think Ukraine is good or Putin's bad. They helped because they got nervous when their own borders were at risk, because none of these countries want to be bordering back up to a reorganized Soviet Union. None of the NATO countries, none of the non-NATO countries, none of them want to be bordering a new Soviet Union. So that's the only reason people are getting involved. And that's why politics are showing you pictures of kids and everything on the news, is because they want you to think that this is the fight we're fighting because it's the right fight. No, it's the profitable fight, and it's the fight that, you know, is best for business. It's like when one of the things that made me real discouraged during Desert Shield and Desert Storm was it was very clear that we weren't there fighting for any rights or fighting for any freedoms. We were there fighting for Exxon's best interest and Tesco and all, you know, whatever these oil companies, not Tesco.
I still don't even know why we're there, but I don't know why we're in Ukraine either.
Oh, we're protecting the money. People have investment interests, global networking, you know, banking, etc. Have money tied up in these countries. You know, they back like, oh, we'll give you money to build a road and all this other stuff. But now you're indebted to this national bank for this many billions, and it's going to be something we hold over your head for years and get you to do policy that's beneficial for us because of it. It's all a fucking money game. That's all politics.
Well, the root of all evil is money. That's obvious. So
that's why I don't take sponsorship or advertising, because I know my ass would turn evil in a minute if enough money started rolling in.
Well, yeah,
I tell people all the time, the reason I don't sell out is because nobody offers me enough. And the reason I make my price so high, I know I'm easily corruptible. If Keltec backed, I hate Keltec, and I always tell people never buy Keltec. But if they backed up a dump truck of money to my door right now, I'd be telling you tomorrow how they're the best fucking brand in the world. That's why I avoid making money, because I don't want my opinions influenced by money. Mike Peake said, so a president doesn't affect nothing. He doesn't write laws. No, he doesn't write laws like Congress, but him shutting down Keystone didn't affect anything. Well, sure, it did affect some stuff. It probably affect lots of things, but here's the reality of Keystone Pipeline. All it did was pipe tar sand oil down to Texas, which got refined and then shipped back to Canada. It wasn't used for, it isn't the type of oil that's used for gas. It wasn't even going to be sold in this country. The only people making any money off of it were the people in Texas that were refining it. And
that's the country. That's the country and Americans.
The people in the past, but it's a limited number of Americans. It's like, yeah, it's great that the people who work in the coal mine make money, but if the coal mine dust and all the other pollution destroys my property 10 miles away, that's not benefiting everybody. That's benefiting very few people. So, and I'm from West Virginia, believe me. I know people who lost hundreds of acres of valuable property that became worthless because coal mines, and no one ever reimbursed them or gave them a dime. The government, in fact, actually, slapped them down when they tried to sue the coal mines and stuff for doing illegal activities that ruined their property. So it's all about money, and it's about a few tiny people making money. And those people that were going to work in the refineries in Texas, well, they barely make a living. Texas has a really low standard of living and income level. So the people working at the factory,
the fifth largest economy in the world.
No, they're not. In California is.
Wow. Well, California may be up there too, but I'm pretty sure Texas
is like lowest in standard of living, very low in actual income, low in education. They are not a high-end nation in anything. They're just big, and they make a lot of money off of oil. But that money goes into the pockets of very few people. It's not most of the people in Texas aren't making oil money.
No, I would agree.
It's like 1% of the people in Texas are making 99% of the oil money.
We have millions of people coming across the border, sucking money. Texas has a deficit, or doesn't have a deficit. Fuck it. Texas has a surplus of money, yes. And we don't have a state income tax, although they ripped us off on property taxes. But we don't have a state income tax. And the reason is because I think we have fairly responsible politicians in Texas.
Well, we have a surplus also, and we don't have state income tax, but I would not go as far as to say we have responsible politicians. at all. We just have a pretty strong industry with all the shipping because of all the shipping coming in from, Japan and China, et cetera, into the West Coast. That's what buoys us, and Boeing and things like that. It's the big industries. I wouldn't give the politicians credit for it. But that's one of the things like Texas, when people get mad about them shipping immigrants to other states. A lot of you probably think, oh, he's a liberal, he doesn't like that. I don't like abusing people, period. I don't like using people as chess pieces. But here's the thing. If you're a state like New York that says, oh, the borders should be open, well, then Texas shouldn't have to ship them to you. You should say, hey, how many people came in today? Send us our share, because you should be supporting that.
Yeah,
it's easy to say we support it when it's easy for me to say, hey, I think everybody should have a right to, move freely if they're moving across my neighbor's property and destroying his stuff and not mine. When they start walking across my property, then it's a different issue. And that's why I feel like about states like Colorado and New York, if you want to be states,
that's like non-gun owners saying we need more gun control.
Yeah. It's just like, well, if you believe in it, if you believe in immigration, then take your share. Don't put all the burden on just states that have the bad luck of being right on the border. So do your share. You shouldn't have to have them shipped to you. When you bitch about having them shipped to you, that just shows me you're a fucking hypocrite. Because aren't you pro open border? Aren't you pro these are people and they need to have an opportunity? Well, then give them an opportunity. Bring them up there. Got a higher standard of living, higher income, everything else. They have a better chance up there. But they don't do that because they're fucking hypocrites.
So you don't like Kel-Tec. What's your favorite brand gun?
Oh. I prefer revolvers. I've got different stuff. I mean, it's mostly revolvers back there, but I got stuff over here too and everything. But I would say my favorite brands are, for semi-autos, Beretta, and for pistols, probably Smith or Ruger. Kind of goes back and forth on the two.
Huh.
So.
All right.
I like Ruger. I like Smith, and I like Colt too. I mean, what revolver lover doesn't?
Yeah,
like
Colt's got the name. I mean, but I think they've kind of gone down. They're kind of like Sig to me. They were great.
They're CZ now.
They're what?
They're CZ now. They're owned by CZ.
Colt is.
Yeah, they're.
Oh, yeah. Well, and CZ doesn't CZ connected with Dan Wesson too?
Yeah, they own Dan Wesson. They own Colt. That's what they kind of.
I think Dan Wesson makes pretty good. 1911.
That's why they bought Colt, so they can phase out Dan Wesson. But let's see, dude. Are any other questions coming in over here? Let me see. I'm so far behind in the chat that I don't. Let me start at the bottom and work my way up. Hey, there's an Eeyore hat now. Yes, there is.
I saw something about Ted Cruz. He's on my shit list. Somebody saying that I'm going to support him because he's in Texas. He voted to send money to Ukraine, so he's on my shit list too. So don't think I support him just because, although I do think he's a freedom kind of patriot guy.
So I think he's a sellout that'll do whatever makes him money. Because when you look at how his career was formed and how he was basically hand selected by a billionaire who shipped him down to Texas and paid for him to run for a state position, and then paid for him to run for another state position, and then paid for him to run for Senate. He's just another.
He's been in politics too long. That's my biggest thing. He's a career politician and needs to get his ass out.
I think politics either needs to do one of two things. It either needs to start being like jury duty, or it needs to be where you sign a pledge like the priesthood that once I'm a politician, I don't take money from billionaires. I don't get to have cushy consulting jobs. I get a pension for the rest of my life, and I'm not allowed to be involved in the stock market. If you really want to help your country and be that powerful, well then sacrifice something. Be like the priesthood. Or it could be like lottery duty, where you get not lottery duty, a jury duty, where you get something in the mail and you're like, fuck it, I got to be a senator for 4 years.
Right.
Something like that I'd be all right with. But even then you'd have to worry about billionaires finding out who was chosen and then going, hey, I'll give you this much money to vote for this. Right. But yeah, politics definitely, our system is definitely broken.
But it's the best out there.
Well,
give me a better one.
What's like what Churchill says, democracy is the absolute worst form of government except for all the other ones.
Well, but we're supposed to be a republic, not a democracy.
Well, a republic is a democracy. I mean, a republic is a form of democracy. If you like list all the different types of governments under democracy is a democratic republic.
Well,
so,
democracy though is usually on mob rule and on
no,
majority.
That's absolute democracy. That's what they call individual democracy, absolute democracy. Those are when every person votes on everything. A democratic republic or a representative democracy is where everybody votes on certain people, and then those certain people vote on everything. But nowadays we vote on those people, and then they don't vote on anything. They don't want to get their name put next to any cause. They don't want to be held accountable for anything.
And I'm not even sure we vote on them anymore after.
Yeah.
Voting machines.
I'm not going to sit and say that there couldn't be an argument about whether voting is worth it or not, but because we'd be down a rabbit hole for hours. And I don't know even if I would ever be able to say that it is. So I kind of avoid that topic because I don't know.
YouTube's never given you shit for showing a gun during your life?
As long as you're not holding it. I've been shut down before and given strikes for holding a gun during my live chats.
Oh, I see. I was heard, yeah, you couldn't even show it or it couldn't be in it.
You can't hold, transport, blah, blah, blah. They got all these different rules what you can't do, but they can hang on a wall behind you.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
If I was to walk back there and pick one up off the wall, this video would end.
No shit.
They would cut it off right away, and then I'd get a strike on my account, and I wouldn't be allowed to do live chats for probably 90 days. They did that to me once.
YouTube is a communist mother. I hate YouTube, man.
I do not agree with their positions. It's one of those things, though, that I get stuck in the middle, though, because I'm like, well, they're a private company. They can make their own rules. But then
they're not private. They get government protections.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say it's my house, my rules, and say, yeah, but I want the government to pay my mortgage, because the government protects them from any type of liability.
Right. That's bullshit.
So if they're going to be protected from liability because they're not editors, that's the whole thing. They're saying we are not acting as editors. If you're censoring, well, then you're acting as an editor.
Absolutely.
So then you lose the protections. So you are responsible for what's on your platform if you're removing certain things from your platform and not removing others. So either you just let everything be, whether it's a lie or whether it's true.
I got no problem with criminal shit. They reported the cops. Great. Knock yourself out. You do something criminal. It's on here. Yeah. I got no problem with that. But to just pick and choose on pushing our agenda, fuck them. I hate YouTube.
It's like if I put the word gun in one of my titles,
I know. Yeah, it's that, you know, my channel started as a gun channel all about guns, and it was just like they just mash you. Yeah,
you can't get rich, and that's one of the reasons that's one of the things that has caused the gun community to be the state it is now, where it's a bunch of shills, sellouts, and fearmongers, because that's the only way you can make money. Used to be you could come on YouTube, make videos, and you'd make money off people watching your videos, hearing your opinions, etc. Now you don't get any of that. So if you want to make money, you have to form relationships with manufacturers and scare people into going and buying product, or you got to create sensationalist media that you can sell commercials on of your own. You can't just do your thing and let people watch it like you used to do.
Yeah, it used to be. It was a great platform when it started.
Yeah, it was great. Let me see here. Is there any more? I haven't seen a lot of questions coming in. People are just kind of listening, I think.
How many people are watching? It doesn't show on me.
It's only like 150 people, I think.
Okay.
We had more before, but we're over an hour now, so people have bailed.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Well, I want to say thanks for coming on, because we are past our time for my live.
Okay.
But I want to thank you for coming on, telling us who you are, what you do, and why you do it. I appreciate it.
Well, I must admit, normally most liberals that I talk to are freaking out of control, screaming maniacs with no logic whatsoever. So you are probably one of the more reasonable that calls himself a liberal. I don't know if I would put you 100% liberal, but I definitely see the liberal leanings.
Well, I wouldn't be what most people consider liberal, but I always tell those people, go look up Jeffersonian liberalism.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Hope to talk to you again someday.
All righty. Take care.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.